Story, everyone. Welcome back to Get It Games Fan TV. How's the form? How are we all getting on? So here we go then. The All-Ireland Club Football Championship is upon us. The Provincial Club Championships are thrown in this weekend. And yeah, I suppose we know pretty much now for certain all of the various different county championship winners. There are still some championships ongoing. I mean, the Roscommon football final has gone to a replay. Limerick, Waterford and Wexford still haven't decided their winners yet. The Limerick Club Football Championship is actually still in the semi-finals, and the Tipperary Football Championship hasn't concluded yet. So not every Club Football Championship at county level has concluded. Nonetheless, in this video, we are going to be predicting the entirety of the All-Ireland Club Football Championship. We're going to be going through each Provincial Club Football Championship, Leinster, Ulster, Munster and Connacht, and predicting my All-Ireland as well. I mean, to be fair, we know the majority of the teams who are through, and yeah, why not predict the games, predict the outcomes? A bit like what we do, of course, at county level, All-Ireland predictions. We do usually do these at club level. I don't think I did one last year, but we're going to do one this year, and we're also going to be doing one for hurling as well, which is going to be out later in the week. So yeah, strap yourselves in, hit the like button if you could, subscribe if you haven't already, make sure to check out some of the other content and everything else. And for anyone who has been tuning in to the club content and everything else over the last couple of weeks, of course, there will be match reactions, there will be more videos and everything else where we discuss this in more detail. So let's crack into it. The funny thing is, I did actually make club predictions a little bit earlier in the year as well with the lads with Cooleen Media, where I predicted each of the provincial club winners and my All-Ireland winner as well. But no surprise, majority of them teams are now gone, because that's usually how we do things around here. We predict things, we get them wrong, and then we have to change them. So yeah, my predictions were as follows. So I went for Coola to win Leinster. Yeah, that didn't happen. I predicted, I don't even know who. I predicted Crossmaglen Rangers to win Ulster. Yeah, that didn't happen either. Didn't even win Armagh. And then in Connacht, I predicted St. Bridget's to win Roscommon. Still could happen, you know. Obviously, they have to beat Pierce's in the final, first of all. And then I predicted Newcastle West to win Munster. Yeah, I don't know either. Now, look, to be fair, with new facts and come new information, and having watched the games, seeing the games up close and personal and everything else, like, my predictions can change. To be fair, some of them will have to change because most of them are gone. But the likes of St. Bridget's, you know, just because I predicted them in the past, you know, in a couple of months ago to win Connacht, doesn't mean I'm going to stick with it. And the same with Newcastle West as well. Obviously, you make them predictions before the start of club championships when you haven't seen anyone played, because you have to predict someone, I suppose. And yeah, obviously haven't seen the games a lot more, seeing which players are available with different clubs and everything else. Some of these predictions might change. Some of them might also stay the same, but it is worth bearing that in mind. But anyway, let's start off with the Leinster Club Football Championship. And let's remind ourselves, first of all, with the teams that are going to be in the Leinster Club Football Championship. And you'll see them on screen. So we've got O'Loughlin of Carlow, Port Arlington are in there of Laois. We've got Summerhill of Meath. We've got Killaloe Young Emmets of Longford. We've got Baltinglass of Wicklow and Athy of Kildare. Nave Martin of Louth. The Downs of Westmeath. Tullamore are in there of Offaly. And Ballyboden St. Enda's are in there as well of Dublin. So that's going to be interesting to see how these all get on. And in terms of the preliminary quarterfinals then, so starting off, we've got O'Loughlin of Carlow versus Port Arlington of Laois at Netwatch Cullen Park. This game is taking place this weekend as well. Old Lakeland won their first county title since 2013. Port Arlington got past Courtwood via a replay. Old Lakeland do have the likes of Sean and Mikey Bambrick, so some interesting Carlow County stars. But Port Arlington, as we know, have been there and done it many times in Laois in recent years, and with the likes of Regan Murphy, Jake Foster and Carl Murphy. I think Port Arlington should be a little bit too strong here for Old Lakeland. Look, an incredible achievement for them to come through Carlow and everything else. And Carlow teams have caused shocks in the past. But no, I think Port Arlington will have enough here. I'm going to go with a 113 to 12-point win for the Laois champions. The next game is Summerhill of Meath versus Killaloe Young Emmets of Longford, taking place in Park Talchin. Look, Summerhill have got some incredible players, from Owen Frayne to Conor Frayne in there as well. Killaloe Young Emmets, I mean, they have Keane Farrelly in the side. He scored 1-2 in the final, in the Longford football final. Mark Hughes, impressive as well. But no, I think Summerhill should be too strong here. I think it'd be a massive surprise if they were to get beat by the Longford champion. So I'm going to go Summerhill 3-8, Killaloe Young Emmets 10 points. Then we've got Baltinglass of Wicklow versus Athy of Kildare. Baltinglass have got some interesting players in their ranks. Mark Jackson, he scored 6 points in the final between the sticks. You do have Tommy Keogh and their own version of John McGrath as well. And a tie, look, are fresh off of a famous win, winning their first county title since 2020. What's actually interesting is both of these two last won a county title in 2020 in the COVID year. And I think as well, these two would have been fixed to play each other, but because of COVID and everything else, and the All-Ireland Club Championships were suspended, amongst many other things, the game never took place, and the club championships, the provincial club championships never happened. So it feels like they finally get to run this game back after 6 years and everything else. And maybe both sides have come full circle. But you know what, lads? Club championships, there's shocks, there's surprises. There's always big things that happen. And that's just why I've got a funny feeling that Bolton Glass might just cause the upset here. Look, I've got some very good players, to Kevin Feely, to Barry Kelly, and what they did against Naas was very impressive. But look, do you know what? A part of me just feels like karma is a bitch. And you know what? After the celebrations, the post-match celebrations, where, they were saying Philly McMahon get back to the flats, which, like, by the way, was more than just slagging Philly McMahon. It was writing off a whole area, which has been through its absolute mill and through its fair share of history, which I think was completely unfair and very disappointing to see. So, like, maybe there's a part of me that just wants Bolton Glass to do them over because of that. And maybe I'm being a little bit biased here. I don't know anyone from a tie necessarily, and I'm sure the majority of the people within the club are actually nice people, but that clip just threw me off, to be honest. So, do you know what? We're going to go with Bolton Glass to win 212 to 114. It's going to be a shock. And yeah, the Wicklow champions are going to progress. And got the quarterfinals, and sticking to Bolton Glass, that will mean they will play Summerhill in the opening quarterfinal. And unfortunately for Bolton Glass, the fairy tale story does come to an end here, because I think Summerhill will be far too strong. I'm going to go Summerhill 3-13, Bolton Glass 12 points. Naomh Martin versus Port Arlington, the Louth champions versus the Laois champions. Naomh Martin have got some star-studded players in their ranks, none other than Samuel Roy, who scored 1-4 in the final. Darren McDonald is good in there as well, scored 2 points the last day. But look, Port, they can cause a few shocks and surprises and everything else, but I feel like with Port, like, they would have had to come, they've come through the replay with Courtwood. They've had to then obviously progress against O'Lakeland, as I said previously. So yeah, the idea that they'll then go and beat Naomh Martin as well, I think that might be a stretch too far. And they're not scoring a huge amount of numbers either as well, like when you look at the Laois final. So no, I think Naomh Martin will have enough here, 115 to 11 points. We've got the Downs of Westmeath versus Tullamore. The Downs are buoyed on by players like Luke Loughlin within their ranks. But look, Tullamore are not, short of top players themselves as well, from Cormac Egan to Harry Plunkett, Noel Furlong in there as well. Do you know what? I think this game will be an absolute cracker, to be honest with you. I think both of these two, in terms of the stars that they have on show, the type of games that they produce, even when Westmeath clubs play Offaly clubs, or Westmeath play Offaly in general, I feel like we always get a great game, and I feel like this will be no different. And you know what? I think this is going to go to extra time, but I think the Downs will prevail ever so slightly. I'm going to go to Downs 3-14, Tullamore 1-19. So yeah, I think the Downs will just about come through it. And got the Wexford champions versus Ballybolden. I don't think I mentioned the Wexford champions at the start, so forgive my ignorance there, but it is because, we don't actually have a winner in the Wexford championship yet. It is Castletown Lee Mellows versus Shell Maliers in the final there, still to be played. And Ballybolden St. Enda's waiting in the wings. Look, in terms of the Wexford final, I'll go with Shell Maliers. I would be lying if I knew a huge amount about Wexford football, but I know Owen O'Gara is still there, and I'd love the sort of storyline of him playing Ballybolden St. Enda's, him playing a Dublin club. I think that would be very interesting to see. But either way, regardless of who comes through this, I think this will be a walk in the park for Ballybolden. I've gone them Ballybolden 3-15, Shell Maliers 13 points. They'll be far too strong, in my opinion. Colin Baskell will run Roya, Keane Darcy around the middle, Dara Sweeney. Yeah, Ballybolden are going to be serious contenders for the All-Ireland, in my opinion. So yeah, they'll brush Shell Maliers aside. 3-15 to 13. Semi-final prediction, that would leave Summerhill versus Naomh Martin and Downs versus Ballybolden. And it should be worth saying, I am going off of the GEA's website here in terms of the pairings and who can play who and everything else. So these aren't just my random draws or anything like that. It should be worth mentioning. These are the games that will happen according to my predictions. Games of Summerhill versus Naomh Martin. Look, the Louth champions last year in RD St. Mary's. What a story it was for them getting to the Leinster final, and Louth football in general is on the crest of a wave right now. There's no doubt about that. It's a hard one to predict, but you know what? I think extra time could be on the agenda here again, and I think, I think Naomh Martin might do it. I think they might just come through Summerhill. I think they're a bit more well-rounded than Summerhill have got some extraordinary players from Owen Frayne and whatnot. But no, I think Naomh Martin are going to do it. So I'm going to say after extra time, Naomh Martin 116, Summerhill 17 points. Naomh Martin progressed to the final. Next up, we've got the Downs versus Ballybowden St Enda's in the other semi-final. And you know what, lads? The Dublin club champions, like sometimes in Leinster, there's always a game in there somewhere where they look a little bit shaky, where things don't go according to plan and they look a little bit up and down. And like for Ballybowden, things went very smoothly winning the Dublin final. Things, in my opinion, are going to go very smoothly in the quarterfinals. And usually in Leinster, the Dublin clubs are far too strong and far too powerful. But I just have a feeling here, and I'm not going to say the Downs are going to win, but I think they're going to push Ballybowden as close as anyone is going to in the Leinster Club Championship. I think this is going to go down to the absolute wire, and don't be surprised, to be honest with you, if we even see like a penalty shootout or something here. I think the Downs have the players to really hurt Ballybowden, and I think Ballybowden will be one of them teams as well that will be thinking a little bit further down the line. I'm not too sure where this game will be played. I know sometimes they play semi-finals in Croke Park, so maybe that will be a significant advantage to Ballybowden. And look, I am going to predict them to win 217 to 215, but what I'm saying is don't be surprised if the Downs pull off something here. And that then leaves the Leinster final, and it is the familiar old pairing of a Dublin club and a Louth club. Different clubs, of course. Coola RD St Mary's last year. This time it will be Ballybowden St Enda's and Naomh Martin. But I'm going to say that Ballybowden come through this, and having received a bit of a shock against the Downs, I think they'll do a little bit more comfortably this time around. I'm going to go Ballybowden 112, Naomh Martin 10 points. So Ballybowden St Enda's will win the Leinster Club Football Championship, according to my prediction. Next up, we have the Ulster Club Football Championship, and I do think this is the only club championship where we know for certain each of the county winners. So in Derry, we've got Newbridge, Sean O'Leary's. In Antrim, we've got Dunloy. We have Kingscourt Stars of Cavan. We've got Airngales Balik of Fermanagh. We've got Loch McCrory of Tyrone. We've got Kilcoo of Down. We've got Scottstown of Monaghan. We've got Naomh Connell of Donegal, and we've got Madden of Armagh in the ranks as well. So yeah, this is going to be very interesting. The Ulster Club Football Championship, not short of drama. So many teams on an even spectrum as well. I feel like with Leinster, you can pick out Ballybowden and definitively say they'll be the winners, but I feel like with Ulster, there's a lot of different teams you could go with here. It feels kind of wide open a little bit. We'll start off with the preliminary quarterfinal, where it is Newbridge Sean O'Leary's of Derry versus Dunloy of Antrim. Dunloy fresh off of winning their first Antrim title in almost 100 years. I mean, it would be incredible for them to get past Newbridge Sean O'Leary's. But you know what with Newbridge, like they have gone kind of under the radar a little bit. They've won back-to-back titles now in Derry. Look, things didn't go well for them in the club championship last year, but it's one of them sometimes where if you win your first county title, you end that kind of duck, or you end that hoodoo of winning the first one in a long time. There's massive celebrations and everything else. You can get caught out going into, you know, the provincial club championships and everything else because the preparation is not there. I think Sean O'Leary's would have benefited and would have learned a lot from what happened last year. And I think Dunloy will actually be the team coming in with big celebrations and sort of over the moon and everything else. Look, Dunloy have got big players from Sean Elliott and Keelan Malloy. Players were very familiar to mention in terms of playing hurling, but very good footballers as well. But I do think Sean O'Leary's will come through with the likes of Padraig McGrogan and Oisin Doherty in their ranks as well. So I'm going to go Newbridge 212, Dunloy 10 points. We move on to the quarterfinals, and first up, we've got Kingscourt Stars versus Airngales Balik. Kingscourt do have Jordan Morris in their ranks, and Airngales themselves have Ulton Kelm. So two, you know, absolute sharpshooters, absolute star forwards in terms of, you know, both of these two clubs. And look, Airngales, to be fair, like they've won back-to-back titles in Fermanagh. They lost out fairly handily to Scottstown last season. But you know what? I think this game's going to be a bit of a slugfest. It's probably not going to be a great watch, but I think Kingscourt are going to get over the line 10 points to 8. It's about time we've seen a Cavan club team do something in the Ulster Club Football Championship. And I just have a feeling Kingscourt, like they might just be a bit of a banana skin team to play against this year. We've then got Loch McCrory of Tyrone versus Kilcoo of Down, and oh my goodness me, I'm very, very excited for this game. If this game isn't on TV somewhere, then we're absolutely missing a trick here. This has to be on somewhere because I think this is like going to be such a fascinating game. With Loch McCrory, you've got the likes of McElhone, Rory McCullough, and fresh off of winning their first ever Tyrone Senior Football Championship, there'll be nothing short of confidence going into this. Well, look, Kilcoo are the team who've been there and done it, and they're like that wily old fox that just finds a way in these type of games, even when they don't play particularly brilliant. And with the likes of Sheelan and Ryan Johnston and Micheál Rooney, Noel Kane between the sticks, I'm going to say this goes all the way to penalties. But I think Kilcoo find a way in like dramatic fashion. I'm going to say it finishes 112 to 15 points, but Kilcoo win it on a penalty shootout. I think there's a massive chance of an upset here, but I think, you know what? Fresh off of winning a first ever Tyrone championship, like, I think Loch McCrory, look, there's going to be some celebrations over the next weeks. There's no doubt about it. Kilcoo, having won down again, like the 13th title in 14 years, they'll be far more prepared going into this. And I think, I think, look, it will be very, very close. I'm saying it goes to penalties, and I think Kilcoo will win it on penalties, but there is that part of me that thinks that Loch McCrory could also win this, to be honest with you. Then got Scottstown of Monaghan versus Niamh Connell of Donegal. Niamh Connell have the likes of Finbar, Rorty, and Shay Malone in their ranks. And it was a big win for them, obviously, against Guido in the Donegal football final. But lads, looking at Scottstown, you feel like at some point, surely they need to make the breakthrough in Ulster. They haven't won an Ulster Club Football Championship since 1989. And I feel like they're in the Ulster Club Championship almost every year because of how dominant they've been in Monaghan. They've been getting the semi-finals in Ulster, finals in Ulster, and you feel like at some point, surely they need to get over the line with players like Jack McCarron, Conor McCarthy, Rory Bregan. Like, come on, they have to win this at some point, surely. And too often, more than not, they let themselves down in these type of games. But I'm going to say that they do have enough 115 to 12 points. Donegal teams over the last couple of years haven't done particularly well in the Ulster Club Football Championship. So I think Scottstown are going to benefit because of that. So yeah, I'm going to go with 6-point win for Scottstown. And the last quarter-final pairing would pair Newbridge, as we mentioned before, against Madden of Armagh. Much like Loch McCrory, Madden also won their first ever senior football championship in Armagh when they beat St. Pat's Cullyhanna by 20 points to 9. Madden have the likes of Niall and Conor Grimley within their ranks as well. Darragh McMullen as well is a very impressive player. But I think Newbridge are going to do it. I just think Newbridge haven't had the sort of, haven't been that team last year. I think they'll do enough this time around to get past Madden and get into the semi-finals. They're definitely dark horses a little bit. Like, they're not really being discussed or mentioned or anything like that. I feel like if this was Watty Graham's Glen, everybody would be saying they'll win Ulster, but because it's not them, you know what I mean? And Sean O'Leary's have been the team. They beat Slotneil in the final this year. They beat Glen in the final the season previous. Like, they're a good team. Newbridge, Sean O'Leary's, and they shouldn't be slept on. So, do you know what? I'm going to say they narrowly come through this. Not going to be the greatest game, I'll say, but 16 points to 14, 2-point win. That's enough to send them to the semis. Semi-final pairings would leave Kingscourt versus Kilcoo and Scottstown versus Newbridge, Sean O'Leary. Starting off with Kingscourt versus Kilcoo. Look, Kilcoo nearly got bet by the Cavan champions last year. Like, that was, do you know what I mean? Like, a very, very close game, and it was very nervy and everything else. But I don't think the same will happen this time around. I think Kilcoo will ease through this relatively comfortably. I'm going to say 4-11 to 13 points. The other semi-final, I think, is going to be an absolute barn burner between Scottstown and Newbridge. And I'm going for another penalty shootout here. I'm going to say that Scottstown come through on penalties after a 117 to 214 draw. I just think Scottstown will look a little bit vulnerable. They'll be a little bit shaky. Like, I feel like they can be gotten at, but I feel like they'll still have the resilience to pull through. And I think with Rory Beggan between the sticks as well, if it was to go to a penalty shootout, that just might be the difference. And that then sets up a Kilcoo versus Scottstown final. And if you remember last year, Kilcoo absolutely wiped the floor with Scottstown and sort of reminded everyone that they haven't gone away. They're still there. And, Scottstown, which everyone fancied going into that game, were blown away in more ways than one, really. I don't think Scottstown will make the same mistakes, though, and I think in around the middle they'll be far better. I don't think they'll leave the same amount of spaces in behind. And I think another thing worth mentioning as well, I think the new rules will benefit a team like Scottstown more so than Kilcoo, in my opinion, because the new rules weren't there in last year's club championships. We should mention that. And I think with players like Rory Beggan, Conor McCarthy, Jack McCarron, like, they have players there who can kick 2-pointers and make a difference. So I'm going to say that Scottstown narrowly come through it and win their first Ulster Club Football Championship since 1989. I've predicted them to win this in the past, and they've let me down. So come on, Scottstown. Come on. I'm going to channel my inner Monaghan. We got the Monaghan jersey there in the back. Maybe we'll get a Scottstown jersey up there at some point too. I'm going to say Scottstown 12 points, Kilcoo 11. We then move on to the Connacht Club Football Championship and reminding ourselves of the teams that are in here. So we have Mike Cullen of Galway. We have Shamrock Ales of Sligo. We've got Ballina Stephenites of Mayo. We've got North London Shamrocks of London. We've got one of Pádraig Pearse's or St. Bridget's of Roscommon. That final went to a replay. And we do have Leitrim Gales of Leitrim as well. So look, starting off with the quarterfinal predictions, Mike Cullen versus Shamrock Gales. Look, Cullen will have to have their guard up because we all saw what Coolera Strandhill did last year, coming through Sligo and then going on to win the championship. And Shamrock Gales were ultimately the team who beat Coolera Strandhill in that Sligo final. The likes of David Quinn was outstanding that day. And yeah, they won their first title since 1992. But I don't think Cullen will make the same mistakes as what we saw with Corofin against Coolera Strandhill last year. I think the likes of Desi Keneally and Peter Cook will do the business. Peter Cook back on the side. I know he came back from the States for the Galway Football Championship semi-final and final. Will he stay around for the Connacht? I think he will. I think he probably will, to be fair. You'd imagine if he's come back for them games, he'll stick around for these games. And yeah, I think Cullen will do enough. 3-9 to 10 points. Then got Ballina Stephenites versus North London Shamrocks. Interesting enough, this was actually a fixture last year, and Ballina won that game by 6 points. And you'd imagine Ballina surely will have enough to come through. Look, Mayo club teams have just been a little bit all over the place in Connacht in the last couple of years. They haven't been able to really do anything of any significance. Surely at some point there's going to be a team who's going to step up and make the breakthrough and everything else. And you feel like Ballina, with some of the players that they have, and Porrick O'Hara and Evan Regan, like surely at some point, maybe they can be the ones to do it. Who knows? I am going to say they win this 116 to 11 points. I think they'll have enough. Then the semi-finals, it would be one of Porrick Pierce's versus St. Bridget's versus Ballina Stephenites. And do you know what, lads? Like, just for this video, it would have been so much more easier if that game just had been decided on the day, because like I don't know what to say. Like, I mean, it's Bridget's versus Porrick Pierce's feels like an absolute coin toss. It feels like it's 50-50. It could really go either way. And I feel like the winner of that could easily then win Connacht and possibly go on and challenge for an All-Ireland or get to a final or something like that. So it's such a difficult one, isn't it? Because you know, you could easily get it wrong, and then your predictions are completely thrown up in the air. Earlier though, I did predict Bridget's to win the Connacht Club Championship earlier in the year. And look, am I going to stick with them to win Connacht? We'll wait and see what happens, what I say in a couple of minutes. But I'm going to say that they still have enough to get through Porrick Pierce's. And I'm also going to say that they do have enough to get through Ballina Stephenites as well. Ben O'Carroll back on the side, very good player. You have Brian Stack. You've got Bobby Nugent, who's very underrated in that team as well. So, yeah, I'm going to say St. Bridget's 113, Ballina Stephenites for 13. Unfortunately for Mayo clubs, the hoodoo that they have in Connacht will live on. You then have Leitrim Gales versus Cullen, and this is a real banana skin type game for Cullen, and I think they're going to be pushed to the absolute pin of their collar here. And I wouldn't be entirely surprised, actually, if Leitrim Gales pull this off, you know. With the likes of Garvin Jones and Conor Guckian, two notable players for Leitrim Gales. Garvin Jones actually plays his county football with Fermanagh, so that's interesting to see. And they do have a few of the other Joneses in there as well. But yeah, I think Leitrim Gales will, look, they'll push Cullen to the pin of their collar, but I still think Cullen will have the know-how to come through what's going to be a very difficult encounter. I think it will go to extra time, but I think Cullen will do enough. I'm going to go Leitrim Gales 210, Cullen 18 points. And then that sets up the final of St. Bridget's versus Cullen. And look, as I said earlier, I did predict St. Bridget's to win the Connacht Club Football Championship. But you know what, lads? I'm not going to stick with that prediction. I think Cullen will do it. And you know why that is because Cullen won the Connacht Club Championship a couple of years ago back in 2022. And I feel like they have the know-how of winning these games. I don't think they'll make the same mistakes that we've seen other Galway teams make. And it's also that thing as well where predicting a team to win Connacht when they haven't even won their, St. Bridget's could very easily lose to Porrick Pierce's. And the thing is as well, is like you're predicting the team to come through Roscommon, to then beat Ballina, to then beat Cullen. It's going to be tough. And I feel like even Porrick Pierce's could potentially get caught somewhere along the way as well. So, if they were to beat Bridget. So I'm going to go with Cullen to win the Connacht Club Football Championship. I'm going to say Cullen 112, St. Bridget's 110. We then move into the Munster Club Football Championship, and let's remind ourselves of the teams in here. So we've got Éire Óg of Clare, we've got Rathcormac Ordenor of Waterford. That game still, that final still has to be played. Still has to be worked out in Tipperary as well. You'll either have Clonmel, Upperchurch, or Kilkeel and Kilcash of coming out of Tipperary, and they will be playing St. Finbarrs of Cork. And you do also have Dingle of Kerry, and then you've got a couple of teams still in the running in Limerick as well. Adair, Newcastle West, Father Casey's, or Mungret St. Paul's. So they are the teams in Munster. And looking through the quarterfinals, the first game up is Airog of Clare versus Rathcormac or the Nor of Waterford. Look, I'm going to say Rathcormac come through the Nor. No particular reason, but I feel like it's interesting. It's always Rathcormac or the Nor. I feel like it's that final every year in Waterford. But I'm going to go with Rathcormac just for the crack mainly. But they have Stephen Curry and Jason Curry in their side, two notable Waterford footballers. And they have been the team who've more often than not been in, the kind of Munster Club Football Championship. And I do remember a couple of times them nearly causing surprises and shocks. I remember they nearly beat, was it Cairns O'Rahilly's a couple of years ago? They nearly beat. So they are a difficult side. But look, I think Airog will have enough with the likes of Mark McInerney, Ika Maguire and Gavin Cooney. I'm going to say Airog 114, Rathcormac 13 points. Then leaves the Tipperary champions versus St. Finbarrs. And obviously with the tragic passing of Philly Ryan, it's meant that the Tipperary Football Championship's been held back a little bit. Clonmel and Upper Church couldn't play their semi-final as a result of that. So, it's going to be a bit of a tight turnaround for whoever wins the Tipperary Championship. But you know what? I'm going to say the Clonmel Commercials will have enough to get over that semi-final and final. And they'll do it for Philly himself. And that will galvanise them on to do it. And look, it is worth mentioning they have some serious players in the rank from Michael Quinlivan and Seamus Kennedy, and they've been here and done it numerous times in Tipperary and even caused big shocks in Munster as well in the past. So I think Clonmel will win Tipperary. But will they beat St. Finbarrs? I don't think so. I'm going to say St. Finbarrs 215, Clonmel 112. I think it just might be a bit too much for Clonmel. A lot of games in a short space of time. And I think the Bars, it is worth mentioning, with Stephen Sherlock, Ian Maguire and Brian Hayes in around the middle. Yeah, I think the Bars will be too strong here. The other semi-final, we'll see Dingle of Kerry versus one of Adair, Newcastle West, Father Casey's or Munger at St. Paul's. Do you know what? It would have been handy if Limerick could have just done their football championship a little bit earlier, given the fact that I made the mammoth prediction earlier in the year of predicting Newcastle West to win the Munster Club Football Championship. I mean, yeah, lads, I agree with you. I don't know what I was thinking there going with Newcastle West. Look, maybe I was just trying to be a little bit trendy or cool or something like that. But you know what? If Newcastle West do first of all come through Limerick and then beat the Kerry champions and then most likely the Cork champions, Newcastle West jersey is going on that wall. Actually, one better, a Newcastle West jersey is going on me for the remainder of the club championships. No question about that. Look, am I going to stick with that prediction? Newcastle West winning the Munster Club Football Championship? The answer is no. I mean, let's be honest, lads. There's more chance of me becoming the next president of Ireland than Newcastle West winning the Munster Club Football Championship. I mean, come on. Certainly be supporting them versus Dingle, though. There's no question in regards to that. And I'll be supporting them versus Dingle, provided they come through Limerick, because you still have it there. You still have Munger, St. Paul's and Father Casey's as well. So no doubt those clubs are looking at this and thinking, well, Newcastle West haven't won it yet. No, I think Dingle will beat them, lads, in all honesty. What I am going to say, though, is that this game goes down to the absolute war. And I do think the likes of Ian Corbett, Mike McMahon and Owen Hurley will do damage for Newcastle West. But Dingle, we know the stars they have from Paul and Conor Gainey. Mark O'Connor, I'd imagine, will still be there. Maybe he might go back to AFL, who knows. But I think Dingle will have enough. I'm going to say Dingle 116, Newcastle West 211. I think it's going to be a very tight, very close encounter, but Dingle will come through. And my other semi-final prediction is Éire Óg Ennis versus St. Finbarrs. And I'm actually going to go for a bit of a goal fest here. Éire Óg 3-9. Finbarrs 4-7. I think it's going to be a torrential day in the south of Ireland. Goals galore, mad conditions, mad game, basket case of a game, and the Bars will come through it. 4 goals and 7 points to 3-9. Sets up the final between Dingle and St. Finbarrs. And you know what, lads? Dingle lost on penalties a couple of years ago to Castlehaven. And I mean, that would have been just absolute heartbreak from a Dingle perspective. But I think they'll get revenge this time around, and I think they'll do enough. I think having saw them against Austin Stacks, I was very impressive with how they turned that around, because I think Austin Stacks themselves are a very good team. And I think Dingle, having come through that, showed a lot of resolve. I think it'll be very close. Look, the Bars are so strong. The midfield battle here is going to be so fascinating with Ian Maguire on one side and Mark O'Connor on another. This is going to be a titanic clash of a Munster final. But I think Dingle will do it. I'm going to say 112 to 13 points, and Dingle win their first ever Munster Club Football Championship. And then that sets up the All-Ireland semi-final. So Dingle will be the representative of Munster against Ballyboden, the representative of Leinster. Mike Cullen, the representative of Galway, will play Scottstown of Monaghan and Ulster. So In terms of a prediction then, Dingle versus Ballybowden. I'm going to say Ballybowden do it, lads. 114 to 112 is going to be my prediction there for Ballybowden. I just think they're just more well-rounded. I think they can match Dingle in around the middle with Keane Darcy. I think they just have a bit more going forward with Ross McGarry, with Con Basquel, with Dara Sweeney than what Dingle will have. And yeah, I think Dublin clubs, obviously playing in, semi-finals and everything else, I think they'll have enough here, in my opinion. It'd be interesting to see where this game is held. Like, if it's outside Croke Park, that could potentially benefit Dingle, but I think it will be in Croke Park. So I'm going to go with Bowden to come through it. Moycullen versus Scottstown is a very, very hard game to call. Scottstown, having won their first Ulster Club Football Championship since 1989, I mean, the celebrations will be through the roof, and finally they would have broken their voodoo in Ulster, and it would be the most Scottstown thing ever to then go out and lose to Moycullen in, devastating fashion. But I think they'll do it, to be honest with you. I think they'll narrowly do it, and what I think will be a very cagey and drab affair. I'm going to say Scottstown 1-9, Moycullen 11 points. I think Scottstown, by the smallest of margins, will come through it. And then we have the All-Ireland final, lads. Scottstown versus Ballybowden. Scottstown have never won the All-Ireland, whereas Ballybowden won All-Ireland, and that was back in 2015. And yeah, look, maybe some people will say I'm a bit biased being a Dublin man, but I've no affiliation with Ballybowden, St. Enda's. I'm on the north. I live on the north side of Dublin. Some people have asked me recently what is my club actually in Dublin, and it would have been Vincent's growing up, but then I moved kind of closer to Whitehall. So usually Vincent's or Whitehall, one or the other. I kind of follow a bit about them, to be honest with you. But yeah, Ballybowden, St. Enda's, I think they'll have enough, to be honest. I think they will just about do it. Look, I think it'll be very close. Look, Scottstown have the players with the new rules and everything else, but I think it is worth mentioning this game will be played in early January, where the weather is going to be just absolutely awful. And I think Bowden playing in Croke Park as well, I just think that will be an advantage to them. I'm going to go Ballybowden, St. Enda's 2-13, Scottstown 14 points. I'm going to go with a 5-point win for Ballybowden. I think goals will be crucial from a Bowden perspective as they win a second ever All-Ireland title. And so there we have it, lads. They are my predictions for the All-Ireland Club Football Championship. Do let me know yours in the comments down below. And it is worth mentioning as well, we will be doing some predictions for the All-Ireland Club Hurling Championship. They will be out in a couple of days' time. So do make sure to check that out and stay peeled for that one. But yeah, I'm going to go with Ballybowden St. Enda's to win the Dublin Club Football Championship. They already did that. The All-Ireland Club Football Championship is what I'm going to go for there. Do let me know yours in the comments down below. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing, consider hitting the like button. If you could, if you don't want it, that's fine. But if you could, that would be great. And we will be doing, some match reactions and everything else will be becoming a bit more regular now with the club championships really, really heating up. So, yeah, cheers for tuning in and speak to you all later.